It starts with a strange realization. Not all infinities are equal. Some are bigger than others. At first glance, that statement feels like a trick. How can something already endless become more so? But this is no illusion or linguistic game. It's a real and deeply unsettling truth about the nature of infinity. A truth that cracked open the foundations of mathematics in the late 19th century and left even the sharpest minds questioning what numbers really mean. In the quiet corridors of mathematical thought, Georg Cantor unearthed something that defied common sense. He showed that there are different sizes of infinity, and then, with what became known as Cantor's paradox, he went one step further. He stumbled into a contradiction that arose from the very tools he created to understand the infinite. The result wasn't just puzzling, it was seismic. It shook the logical structure of set theory and forced the mathematical world to reevaluate its core principles. This isn't a paradox that hides in obscure theory. It challenges how reality is framed. It whispers that the universe might not just be infinite, but layered with infinities stacked in bizarre, unreachable hierarchies. Cantor's work didn't just open a door, it revealed a spiral staircase of never-ending complexity, winding upward into the unknown. It's the kind of paradox that doesn't let go, one that continues to echo in philosophical debates, logical frameworks, and theoretical mathematics. And for those drawn to the elegance of numbers and the strange beauty of the infinite, it offers a compelling invitation to think differently, boldly even. If ideas like this stir something in the mind, there's a place here to go deeper. Support ensures that more of these curious and unsettling truths come to light. Cantor's paradox emerges from a simple but profound observation about the size of infinite sets. At its core, the paradox reveals a contradiction that arises when trying to consider the set of all sets. It begins with Georg Cantor's revolutionary discovery that not all infinities are the same. He introduced the idea of comparing the sizes, or cardinalities, of infinite sets. For example, the set of natural numbers is infinite, but so is the set of real numbers. And yet, using a method called diagonalization, Cantor showed that the real numbers form a strictly larger infinity than the naturals. This marked the beginning of what he called the transfinite numbers, an entire hierarchy of infinities. But then, the paradox struck. If it's possible to create sets of larger and larger infinities, what about the set that contains all sets? If one takes the collection of all possible sets and considers it as a set itself, does it have a size? And more importantly, could this size be surpassed by the set of all subsets of all sets? Here, a contradiction emerges. According to Cantor's own theorem, the power set, the set of all subsets of any set, is always strictly larger than the original. So the power set of the set of all sets must be larger than the set of all sets. But that is logically impossible, because the power set should already be included within the set of all sets. In trying to encompass everything, the concept collapses in on itself. This paradox surfaced in the late 1800s, during a time of growing formalism in mathematics. The era was marked by a drive to define mathematics with rigorous logic and clear foundations. Cantor, working primarily in Germany, found himself both celebrated and criticized. Some contemporaries embraced his ideas, while others viewed them as dangerous or even heretical. He himself faced serious personal and professional struggles, partly as a result of the controversial nature of his work. Despite the turmoil, his ideas laid the groundwork for set theory as a formal discipline. Cantor's paradox became one of the earliest signs that naive set theory, treating sets as freely constructible collections, was vulnerable to deep contradictions. It sparked a foundational crisis in mathematics, one that would take decades to address. To understand the heart of Cantor's paradox, one must follow the path from a simple idea to an unavoidable contradiction. The journey begins with sets, collections of elements. A set could be something familiar, like all natural numbers, or something more abstract, like the set of all possible points on a line. Cantor's work introduced a powerful tool, comparing the sizes of infinite sets using one-to-one correspondence. If two sets can be perfectly paired off element by element, they have the same cardinality, even if both are infinite. With this method, Cantor discovered that some infinities are larger than others. The set of natural numbers is infinite, but the set of real numbers is even bigger. Crucially, he showed that for any given set, the collection of its subsets, known as its power set, is always of a strictly higher cardinality. No set, however large, can match the size of its own power set. Here's where the paradox begins. If every set has a power set that is larger, what happens when we imagine a universal set? A set that contains all sets, including itself. If it truly includes everything, then it must also include its own power set. But according to Cantor's own proof, that's impossible. The power set should be larger, and thus cannot be contained within the original. Yet by definition, the universal set should contain it. This contradiction is the essence of Cantor's paradox. It's not a trick or a mistake in arithmetic. It's a rupture in the very concept of infinity when pushed to its furthest logical extent. The contradiction isn't about numbers, but about the act of collecting everything into one set. That act leads to an impossibility, a set that must be larger than itself. This paradox exposes a fatal flaw in naive set theory, where sets are allowed to be built freely, without restriction. It reveals that certain ideas, like a set of all sets, are too large, too self-referential, to be treated as ordinary objects within mathematics. It shows that even infinity, when not handled carefully, can twist logic into contradiction. Cantor's paradox marked a turning point in the history of mathematical thought. It was more than a curious puzzle. It exposed the limitations of how mathematicians had been thinking about sets. And in doing so, it triggered a foundational crisis. At the time, mathematics was undergoing a transformation, with growing efforts to ground it in strict logic. But this paradox revealed that even the most basic concepts, when taken to their extremes, could collapse under their own weight. One of the most immediate impacts was the recognition that set theory, as it was originally formulated, was too permissive. Naive set theory allowed the construction of sets based on any defining property. But Cantor's paradox showed that such freedom leads directly to contradiction. This realization, along with similar issues like Russell's paradox, forced mathematicians to develop more robust systems of logic and set theory, frameworks that could avoid these traps. The most influential response was the creation of axiomatic set theories, such as Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory ZF, which introduced strict rules about how sets can be formed. In these systems, the notion of a set of all sets is simply not allowed. It's considered an illegitimate concept because it leads to inconsistency. By banning certain constructions, these axioms restored order to mathematics, but not without controversy. Philosophically, the paradox raised deep questions about the nature of mathematical infinity. It challenged the belief that every mathematical object could be clearly defined or constructed. It also sharpened the divide between mathematics as a formal game of symbols and mathematics as a reflection of some deeper, perhaps unknowable reality. In the realm of logic and computation, the influence persists. Ideas connected to Cantor's paradox inform modern discussions on formal systems, completeness, and the boundaries of provability. In computer science, it echoes in debates around self-reference, recursion, and the limitations of algorithms. To this day, Cantor's paradox remains a warning and a guide. It is a reminder that even in the abstract world of mathematics, there are boundaries that cannot be crossed without consequence. And in confronting those boundaries, mathematics is forced to evolve. Cantor's paradox doesn't simply highlight a strange property of infinite sets. It draws a line between what can be imagined and what can be logically sustained. In attempting to contain the infinite within a single framework, it reveals a built-in contradiction, one that forces a reevaluation of the most basic assumptions in mathematics. It reminds us that the infinite is not just a vast expanse, but a structured and layered concept, one that resists simplification and defies full comprehension. What began as an exploration of size among infinities turned into a fundamental challenge to how sets are defined. The very idea of a set of all sets had to be abandoned, not because it was too abstract, but because it was too dangerous. It opened the door to paradox and threatened the coherence of the entire mathematical system. In response, mathematics didn't retreat. It reorganized, rebuilt, and emerged stronger, more precise, and more cautious. Today, the effects of that shift are still felt. The paradox continues to inspire debates about the limits of formal systems and the nature of truth in mathematics. It stands as a testament to how a single contradiction, if powerful enough, can reshape an entire discipline. So if infinities come in sizes, but there can be no set of all sets, what does that say about the structure of everything we try to define? The layers of this paradox continue to unfold. If a thought sparked while reading, it deserves a place in the discussion. Share it. Every interpretation adds something to the shape of the infinite.